You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. The conservative Supreme Court 5-4 decision today that political partisan gerrymandering cases are outside the purview of federal courts. A major blow for those who try to challenge in court politically drawn district maps that are believed to be unconstitutional. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in the court's majority opinion that, well, first and foremost, he said, it's really not the court's purview to determine what really is political and what isn't. Really, dude? That's sort of what you came up with. Again, the critical people in that case, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh. Two last Supreme Court justices. It was Kennedy, of course, who was there before Kavanaugh, who said he might find a way to rule that partisan gerrymandering, but of course he's no longer on the court. The question now is what happens next? Now, there are two other gerrymandering cases that will go before the Supreme Court, clearly based upon this ruling. They will likely say, we don't see it in that case. And just so you can understand how deep this is, show this graphic, please, folks, that we have here. To understand this was after, you have the graphic ready? It was after the 2020 election. Just so you understand partisan control over 2020's congressional redistricting. Okay, you see blue, Democrats, all right? That's 11%. That's their share of districts, okay? Republican, 40%. What is the key in this map? I want y'all to leave it up. The key is where most black people live. It's the South. Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, North Carolina, all of those places where Republicans control the legislature, and that's the key. Now, just so you can understand why this is really a major issue. So if Republicans are controlling the legislature, they're controlling the drawing of districts. If they are controlling the drawing of districts, then they can make it harder for them to lose. Understand the games they're even using. In Wisconsin, they use a computer algorithm to literally create congressional districts that would guarantee their victory. New York Times did a story that said if Democrats received 55% of all votes statewide in Wisconsin, they would still be in the minority when it came to the seats. In the North Carolina case, and here's the deal, 13 congressional districts. 10 were drawn Republican. 3 were drawn Democrat. One of the Republicans who was asked, how did you arrive at 10 for the Republicans and 3 for the Democrats? He literally said, we couldn't figure out how to give them less than 3. What the Supreme Court has essentially said is if you're in control of the legislature, you can do whatever you want and draw these districts any way you want to draw them. Joining us right now is Allison, Executive Vice President of Campaigns and Programs for the Leadership Conference Education Fund. And, of course, also our panel here, we have Greg Carr, of course, Department of Afro-American Studies, the Chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University, and Lauren Victoria Burke, of course, with NNPA. I want to start with you. Also Kristen Clarke, President and Executive Director, Lawrence Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, who also joins us. Allison, I'll start with you. Ashley, I'm going to start with you, then I'm going to go to Kristen. This is what people don't quite understand here. Republicans have always understood, since Brown versus Board of Education, since the various Civil Rights Acts of the 60s, that they have to control the courts. Their anger was due to the court's decisions in the 50s and 60s. Democrats forgot how vital the courts are. By them holding that seat, blocking Obama with Neil Gorsuch, that guaranteed a 5-4 conservative court, Then you bring in Kavanaugh, that solidifies it, younger opinion. That's real. And so for them, this was one of the key cases. They desperately wanted a conservative Supreme Court to affirm or stop federal courts from joining into these or jumping into these gerrymandering cases.
Absolutely. And I think your point about Democrats and Republicans and how they approach the court, one of the things that I always find most alarming is when Roy Moore was running for Senate, when people were being asked in Alabama why they wanted to vote for Roy Moore, and they would talk about the Supreme Court. They wanted to make sure they would secure a seat on the Supreme Court, and so they would be willing to elect a pedophile. So when we have a court, and the Trump administration obviously thought that they would win in the court today on the census question also, because the census is directly related to gerrymandering. If you don't have an accurate count of how many people are actually living in this country, which is why they wanted the citizenship question on the questionnaire, to have immigrants and people of color be afraid to fill it out, then when it goes to identifying how many people should be in districts through redistricting, which happens after the census, you lose power.
Kristen, this is the gerrymandering decision is huge because essentially it allows Republicans to do whatever they want. They can craft whatever districts they want. They can do whatever they want. And now what it does is the only place where you can stop them, basically what the Supreme Court is saying, is the state Supreme Courts. Well, a lot of those are elected, and so therefore, if you got Republicans who are drawing the lines, who control the statewide, that's the case you have. Luckily, in North Carolina, Democrats now control the state Supreme Court, but the Republican legislature there, they desperately tried to literally strip the state Supreme Court of most of their powers and give it to a lower court where Republicans hold a majority. People need to understand that's how devious they are operating when it comes to the court system. They are trying to rig the system.
No doubt. Today's decision is a devastating one for our democracy. And we have to remember that it's not just extreme partisan gerrymandering that's infecting our legislative maps across the country. It's also racial gerrymandering. Lawmakers are routinely looking for ways to dilute the power of the voices of people of color. And on top of all of this, we've got to remember that this will be the first redistricting cycle that's coming up without the full protections of the Voting Rights Act unless Congress acts now. All of this creates a perfect storm, which means that we will have a redistricting cycle in our country at every level, the local level, county level, state and federal level, where we are seeing maps that harm the interests of Black people, Latinos, and other people of color, where they are packing us into districts and rigging the lines in ways that are intended to silence us. So this is an issue that we have to speak up about now. Today's ruling issued by the court is a setback for our democracy.
Tomas Lopez, Executive Director of Democracy in North Carolina, also joins us. Tomas, how you doing?
Good evening. Great to be here.
It was Common Cause who actually filed a lawsuit that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Luckily, in North Carolina, the state Supreme Court has ruled here. But this has a devastating impact for other states across the country.
This is really troubling. One of the things that's really disappointing about the decision is that Chief Justice Roberts' majority opinion actually acknowledges that partisan gerrymandering is a really bad thing. They say, I think they use the words that it was incompatible with democratic principles. They cited another opinion to that effect. And yet at the same time, they threw their hands up. And so we do have the states as an option, and that's certainly what we're going to go and pursue. But it's a really powerful statement, in the negative today to get the Supreme Court to say this.
Ashley, how do folks now respond? Obviously, you have they've given the green light, essentially. Now the only place to stop. So basically what they're saying is, and by this decision, what they're saying is no federal court now can intervene in any partisan gerrymandering.
Well, people can respond, one, by voting. I mean, in the 2020 election, voting is going to be the most important thing. And it's not just for president, because the way these the state district lines are being drawn also for state legislatures. So the Republicans made intentional efforts over the last 10 years to flip state after state after state house to make sure that they had control to draw the lines. So people need to get civically engaged by voting. They need to be engaged not just at the top, but all the way to the bottom of the ticket. They also need to be completing their census form. I mean, we are really disappointed that the court kicked the can, or really just said, Justice Kagan read her dissent in the court today because she was so disappointed that the federal court did not feel like they should be playing a role in such an important constitutional matter for our country.
Kristen, again, when you look at this ruling, essentially what it says is that you can't now go into federal court and go after partisan gerrymandering. I'm not hearing Kristen, folks.
We need people to understand that democracy involves more than showing up at the ballot box on election day. For democracy to work, we need to, as Allison notes, we need to turn out the count in 2020. We need to make sure that all of us are counted so that we have that data to work with when we go into redistricting. Then we need people to turn out for redistricting when it's happening in their communities. At the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, we are working on a program to empower communities to engage in the next round of redistricting. We need folks to turn out. We need them to speak up. We need them to turn up at the meetings and speak out about the ways in which the maps that are being proposed are wrong and unlawful and harm communities of color. But right now we need to understand that our power extends well beyond the ballot box on election day.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, they're back. MarijuanaStock.org has another great investment opportunity. If you were lucky enough to invest in the last crowdfunding campaign, they raised a bunch of money in just a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Those initial investors now own shares of a publicly traded company. They are certainly on fire. Now they have a new investment opportunity that is as good, if not even better, than the last. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. For those who don't know, the hemp plant is the cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all the plants, which makes for an incredible investment opportunity. And that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. You can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000, something that you may not want to miss out on. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org to get in the game and to do it now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.